Hey, what's going on, y'all? Thank you for joining. This is Ricardo Billingzar, Lessons with Ricardo. And today we're going to continue the journey with DNS by setting up our authoritative DNS server now. All right, y'all. So we are back. Before I go any further, I just want to put on the screen, make sure we understand, if you missed the last video, where we are in our overall journey. And we are currently in this portion. We have already completed Security Onion as well as the FIM, which came along with Waza, the other SIM slash XDR tool I installed in the previous video. If you missed those, check them out, okay? All right, that being said, let's go and get into setting up our authoritative server. I'm going to bring on the screen right here my Proxmox, and let's clear the screen. I'm going to do sudo. Well, I don't have to do sudo because we're logged in as root, but normally you do sudo. And I'm going to do update. This is a Ubuntu flavor, so apt update, and then apt full upgrade. So we upgrade everything we can, and we do a -y to accept. And then last one is I know it does not have Vim, and I enjoy doing my text editing files in Vim. So we're going to do apt install Vim as well as curl, just in case we need it later, and hit a -y. That is it. I don't imagine it's taking too long either to install. Now we are going to go with bind 9 to do our DNS server setup. Now bind 9 is one of the many DNS options you have out there. There are some people enjoy Unbound. I know as a part of a lot of open source projects, such as I think pfSense, OpenSense, they both use Unbound. So it's a popular one. I just did not get comfortable with that in time to put a video out for it. I do want to do more videos in the future using stuff like Unbound or even Core DNS, which is a Go-based library for DNS. But Bind works, and it's probably the most popular one. It's been around a very long time. It's supported by Red Hat flavors, and pretty much all flavors of Linux. So I went with this one. Now there are some key differences. If you're not doing Ubuntu, if you're doing Red Hat, the biggest difference I found, because I do have another box I run Bind on a CentOS, which is a spinoff of Red Hat and Fedora, but they just locate the files a little differently. But it's pretty much going to be the same once you get to find the location. So now we have that done. We're going to go ahead and do apt install bind, and I'm just going to do tab. Yep, so bind 9, and we're going to do enter yes to accept. It's going to install really quickly. And from here, we're going to go ahead and start setting up. Now, I do have a couple of files from one already built out. I'm just going to be doing copy and paste of, and these will be in the description below. So, but you can follow on the screen directly. Now, with this setup, I'm setting it up because I'm going to be hosting an email server. That means I need to create both a forward zone and a reverse zone. So let's go ahead and go into the directory where bind is installed. First of all, take a look at what's already there. ls. So these are the configuration files that come by default. This one is going to be a file that is pretty much a pointer to everything else that it thinks you need, or it knows you need. And then you, being the owner, you get to come up with all the new configs you want to throw in there that may mess all the new configurations you want to throw in there may mess things up later like I do. But anyway, so the include just says point to these files and include them in the running of this. So these are the ones that come by default. They're pretty standard. Options is really important. So the zones, these things we're going to look at real quick. And I'm going to edit options slightly. I'm going to do a big edit on local. And then after that, we'll start setting up the zone files. And then we'll show you how to test what we configured. All right, so let's go ahead and look at we're already in the directory, so we should be able to put named. Yep. And then I'm just on tab completion, options. All right, so for this one, I have options, and the thing I add here, which I think are very important, is we do copy I'm going to paste it in. I'll tell you about it in just a moment. So we're going to go ahead and enter here. Let's line this up. And then I will take the space out of here. So version I put here because I'm always thinking security first. So here it states that it is not currently available. That means if a penetration testing is taking place and it is pointing to this DNS server, try to query what version of bind is running so it can find an exploit, it will get nothing from that particular query. Not saying it will stop everything, but it will at least stop that initial query. All right, next we just say allow query from any, allow query cache, none, and we're going to save it. Clear. And the next file we will look at is going to be the local file. Now I typed in VI instead of vim, and we're going to do local. But I'll show you what a local file does. So local file is where we're actually going to be naming our zones. We're going to be focused on one domain. One domains I currently have through INOS. And if you don't have a domain registrar yet, please go pick one. And we're going to just make an entry. And I'm going to uncomment this. So it includes the defaults. We're going to paste this in, and I'm going to change the zone file. So as a reminder, the zone file is where our resource records are, and the resource records are the directives, is what names align to which IP addresses. All right. So to break down some information here, really important to understand is, first of all, we are specifying what the file is named, and this can be named anything. Forward.zone, I can do forward.ricardo, whatever I want, it doesn't make a difference. One thing about Unix is it is not sensitive to extension names. It can be given anything. It's really file-based operating system. So as long as you tell it which file does what, it can read it for the most part. There are some nuances there. But also we do the key directory. So this is where we're storing the keys. Now this is important because we're doing DNSSEC setup here. Now we're calling a default policy. You can see this on Bind9's website. And I don't know why stuff disconnects. It'll be back in just a second. There it goes. But I just did default. One, I didn't really understand how to modify the policies yet at the time I set this up. Still haven't looked into it because the defaults work. The default itself works. So I say stick with the default, stick with what works unless you have a reason to explore deeper. And then also we say inline signing just tells it, hey, follow the DNSSEC policy you have set up in the default, and then also create the keys and sign the zone files when you're done. And then notify yes, allow transfers. Like I stated, we're just going to do an IP address. It's not a real IP address because we're just, oh, forgot what line I was on for a second. But what you would do if you were doing an IP address that you knew worked, you would leave the semicolon on the end of it. It is important. And I keep forgetting that I cannot type that way because I haven't done insert. Okay. And I'm choosing to do Vim, and I keep forgetting how Vim works. All right, so there we go. This is it. This is all we would put. We just put the IP address allows this, and we can confirm that by going over to the bind documentation and looking at zones. Here we go. So this says primaries, but it works the same for defaults. Here we go. So allow transfers. You can do multiple. You don't have to format it this way. You can put it all in one line. But formatting is very important for updating your stuff later. But anyway, so there you go. You put that in there, you're good to go. And that's it. We're going to go ahead and save it. We just have to make sure we create these. So I'm going to copy it now. So we got to do the zones folder and the keys folder. All right. And how do I do this? I do make directory -p, and -p says make whatever directory does not exist on the way to creating the end of this statement, which is zones. So it just says, hey, if bind doesn't exist, create bind. If it doesn't have cache, create cache. If it doesn't have var, create var. Another thing is we have to do keys. Now, if we go into, actually, I want to double check the file to make sure I did it right. Should be keys. Yes. All right. Let's go and go into that directory var cache bind. Yep. Auto completes. And let's take a look at it. ls. There we have it. So we have these built-in managed keys files. We have the new key file created and the zone files I created. There is one other one I want to make, which is the logs, because we are doing a custom log build as well. So let's do log. I think it's log or logs. Let me see. It's log. All right, so that is what we will have. So now we have these directories. All right, next thing is just create the zone file. So this is going to be the forward zone and the reverse zone. Now, the forward zone is the one that you will definitely need. Reverse zone you only need if you are doing a PTR record or you want to explore it, set up your own email server. And it's exactly as it sounds. It just does the reverse of what a forward lookup is. So a forward lookup is going to query a domain name to an IP address. A reverse one does an IP address to a domain name. So let's go to zones, and we're going to create it. I'm going to name it the same as the domain name itself. And actually, I am creating a directory. Now, I do this directory because for every domain you want to host, it's all about organization, right? You want to make sure you can easily and quickly get to files, and so you want to create a structure. So I'm creating a structure of making each domain its own folder, and then within that, I will now create the file, which is going to be the forward zone file that we're pointing to. Oh, did that wrong. All right, so for this, we're just going to copy and paste. I'm going to use the example file from here. Go to zones. This is the example file I had in my last video when I talked about DNS. I'm just going to paste that in. Looks good. The only thing I'm going to do now is I'm going to change the example. Now, I use shortcuts as much as I can in VI or Vim. So for here, we're just going to do :% S, and I'm going to type out example. I'm going to make sure it is a period. So / the special character. And we are going to then substitute for the new domain that I am hosting. And we're going to do a global change. So this is going to take care of everything I want to change. All right, so that's it. Our forward zone file is created. It is done. And all I'm going to do now is just save it. Now there's going to be an error. I'll show you just a moment why I know there's going to be an error. It relates to the TTL. But let's go ahead and do the reverse file. So now we're going to do vim zones reverse. We're going to do this directly in the zones folder. Reverse.zone. Now the reason I do it this way is because reverse zones, it is focused on the IP address, and you only have one IP address that relates to the server you're hosting from. You only need one zone file for that. So reverse is only going to need one. So I'll put it right underneath the zone. I don't need to make an internal directory for it. Let's go ahead and do insert, and this one I will use. All right, so right here we have the origin. Now you're going to use the standard n-addr.arpa dot, which is the root, right? This is applied to any reverse lookup. I don't understand why. It's a standard. You have to do this part. Now this is going to be your IP address reversed. Now the first octet in your IP address, IPv4, that is going to be the second to last entry, and then the second one is going to be the third to last entry, and then the third one will be the last entry on the left, reading right to left for origin, and then the very last octet, it will be the subdomain of the resource record you specify at the bottom. So for this case, we're doing the mail at the domain name I have, and this is a PTR record. Now, the NS record, the name server is also specified here as well, and that's it. Now, the serial number, as I stated before in a previous video, this is important to update when we create files. And in fact, I just thought about it. We need to update the forward zone as well. How do we do that? We go to epoch, converter, timestamp, and we're just going to take this number, which converts today's date, and you can modify it if you want to, and we just pop it into our file, right where serial number is. This ensures that when we refresh, it will read immediately what changes were given, and it will be a happy camper. And we will be a happy camper. We won't be crying, trying to figure out what's going wrong, which happens a lot, right? So we're going, oh, it changed color. I love that. I love when the color stuff kicks in. I probably shouldn't be that excited, but I do like it. It makes me feel all colorful inside. All right. We are good with that. Now, the only thing left to do is to start our binding server. Well, I guess restart the binding server. So let's first of all check it to see what status it's in. System CTL status. I believe it's known as named. There we go. So this is the named service. All right. And now we are going to, let me go ahead and clear this. Hit up. And we're just going to change this to restart. If everything worked well, we should be able to see that it got created keys. It said it started successfully. I don't always trust that. So what I do is I look at the journal. In journal CTL -XEU and then named .service. All right. So here we're going to get a little more information. That's what we're looking for. See this? Red. Never a good thing. But let's see what it is. Let's see what the red is. Alright, right here. See this? This is what I was telling you before. Because we're doing DNSSEC, it actually has a limit to what you can set TTL as. Now, we're exceeding that, and we have to modify it. Now, this just you can look it up, but it represents 1 day, and if you remember, TTL was set for 2 days. So all we have to do is remember how to get back to the file. Let's clear our screen, and we're going to go to Vim. I'm being lazy, trying to do it this way, and we're just going to modify this by doing 1. Now, another alternative you have is just to copy and paste the digits you saw in the previous error and just replace the 2D with that number, which is up to you. So we do 1 day, and I will modify the serial number. As I stated, it helps it know that something changed, and I will just already have it up. I'll go to refresh, pull a new one. There we go. There were some expected errors in addition to the last one, and these errors are going to be ones related to the ability to write to certain directories. So if I scroll over here, you'll see where it's not able to find these records. Basically, it can't write to the location. So what we're going to do is we're going to add, so permission denied. Next thing is we need to check out our directory. So let's go lsal. What we find here is that all of these are root, even this one. We don't want that because bind is running on here and it's trying to execute against these folders. So we're actually going to change the ownership, and we're going to do bind, bind, and then we can just do period -R, which is recursive, a capital R. Hit enter, and now we do lsal. Oh, if I type it right, Let's just clear the screen. AL. We now have bind for all of these. So now that should take care of that error we had, and we should be good to go. Last step is going to be setting up logging. So let's go ahead and restart one more time. All right, so let's go ahead and check one last thing before we do our final validation, and we're going to make sure we look into the zone file. Because if we did this correctly, and DNSSEC is set up as we expect it to be, if we go into zones and we go into the domain we set up, it should have, yes it does, it has signed JBK and the zone file itself. These were automatically created because of the default rules we have, because of the default DNSSEC option that's available in Bind 9. All right, so now we know that's working. Last step is just to verify that our authoritative server will respond to this domain. And we're going to do NS1. We set this up in the forward zone file. So let's see if this works. Which it should not, and I'll tell you the reason why. There we go. We got 0 returns, refused. Now the reason why is because, one, we haven't set up our DNS server with the registrar, and then we also have not set up our secondary, also known as slave DNS authoritative servers. So it can't call out to anything. Nothing exists, and this is the error we saw in the journal where it had like a DNS, the red line that showed up there. So yeah, it's not reachable from the regular web because we don't have everything set up yet. Now, how we can test to make sure the zone file actually works locally, we just do an @ and we do the loopback address, which is 127.0.0.1. Hit enter. Now we have our entry that we put into our zone file. So if we set up everything with the domain registrar, like GoDaddy, portbun.com, or Gandhi, and we get everything set up properly, and we wait for it to propagate through the system, then when we run this, it will return this record. So now we know it's running correctly. We know it's configured correctly. Last step here is actually going to set up our logging. Logging is going to be important so that we can query and troubleshoot. So we can logging is important so we can troubleshoot our queries that hit our authoritative server. So we're going to go to Etsy. It's important I set it up in this other location. I can set up anywhere. Like I said before, we can tell it where things exist. But we're going to set up this, and I am going to drop the file name, which is going to be logging name.conf.logging. So name.conf.logging is the name of it, and I'm going to just do copy and paste all of it. This is a massive file. I will put in the descriptions. Well, I'll put a link to my GitHub where I'll be hosting it for everyone's use. And go to the very top. All right, that should be good. So let's go ahead and save it. And cool thing about this, it is agnostic to the domains you're running because it is logging of bind itself, not of the domains particularly. It will capture all of the queries that come through bind. All right, so now we're just going to restart. Oh, nope, forgot one thing. What did I forget? I forgot to modify the file that is the pointer to all of our configurations, which is the name.conf. And we're just going to take this line here. This is how I do it. I just delete it, and then I hit P twice, and I will paste it. So this is why I love Vim, VI. Once you learn the shortcuts, it's pretty cool. So logging, now it knows what to do, and now I will restart. As soon as I remember how to type, restart, named, there we go, and we know if it works if we have logs. We got logs. All right, y'all. So that's it. I appreciate you sticking around. I know the video is a bit much if this is new to you, but trust me, I'm here to help you. And if you have any comments, please leave them. I'm happy to respond to them as soon as I can. If you like the video, make sure you subscribe, you like, and you share. On the next video, we'll be walking through setting up the DS record for DNSSEC, which is a crucial part of it, as well as security keys for the zoned transfers and whatever else I could think of that goes in the security portion, but those are the ones we'll focus on. But that'll be the last video of the DNS portion of what we're doing in our home lab. And until next time, let's continue the journey together. All right, thanks. Bye.